Thursday at 9 on WTTW. Watch WTTW live 24/7, wherever you are.
To everyone working in healthcare, you have been working tirelessly to take care of our residents and loved ones. We are thrilled we can now give you the vaccine you deserve. Learn more at chicago.gov/COVIDvax.
WTTW programming originates from the Renee Crown Public Media Center.
We've got a great show, and on our show tonight,
Mrs. Brown, you've got a lovely daughter. In the name of love.
See the girl with the diamond ring. She knows how to shake that thing now.
Saturday at 7 on WTTW.
Redemption. Revolution. Les Miserables. Celebrate the 25th anniversary of the ultimate people's musical, Les Miserables, 25th anniversary concert at the O2.
Sunday at 7 on WTTW. This evening's presentation of Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Polk Brothers Foundation, working to make Chicago a place where all people have the opportunity to reach their full potential.
Hi, Chicago. I'm Sam, and you're watching WTTW.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Paris Schutz. Brandis Friedman is on assignment. On the show tonight,
if that's where the party is, the party's in real trouble.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger responds to the former president's attack and talks about his plan to, quote, save the GOP.
We are further easing COVID-19 regulations on Chicago businesses.
Indoor dining expands, liquor stores can sell later, and fitness classes can allow more participants. We have full details.
David's brought Jeffrey, one of the Reptos.
Is this Jeffrey?
And a familiar face to many Chicagoans, Dr. Lester Fisher, on his time at Lincoln Park Zoo and recently celebrating his 100th birthday. But first, some of today's top stories. The vaccination effort is expanding in Chicago and across the country. Chicago Public Health Commissioner Dr. Allison Arwady says Illinois residents 65 and older can start registering this Thursday to get vaccinated at the new mass vaccination site at the United Center. The UC plans to begin vaccinations 1 week from today, and it's expected to administer 6,000 vaccinations per day. We have information on how to register on our website. Also today, President Joe Biden announces the country will have enough vaccination supply for all adults by May, although Dr. Arwady says people will still face delays getting shots in the very near future.
Still, we don't have enough vaccine for everybody who wants it, but every day that calculus is improving and underscoring the United Center as a major improvement in terms of our ability to get vaccine first to seniors.
And coming up later in the program, the latest on changes to indoor dining capacity in Chicago and the suburbs. And Illinois public health officials report more than 1,500 new confirmed cases and 47 additional deaths. That brings the statewide case total to around 1.19 million cases and 20,583 deaths. The 7-day test positivity rate right now is 2.8%. And could improving COVID numbers mean fans in the stands this spring and summer? Mayor Lori Lightfoot says she believes there will be a point during the upcoming baseball season where fans will be welcomed back to Wrigley and Guaranteed Rate Field for Cubs and Sox games. But just when and how many is not yet known. Illinois U.S. Senator Dick Durbin grilled the head of the FBI at a Senate hearing today on the January 6 Capitol riots. Durbin, as chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, led the hearing where FBI Director Christopher Wray testified about the agency's ongoing investigation into the Capitol insurrection attempt. Wray says violent domestic terrorism is, quote, metastasizing and not going away anytime soon. Durbin asked Ray about debunked claims that some of the rioters were anti-fascist activists pretending to be Trump supporters.
Based on your investigation so far, do you have any evidence that the Capitol attack was organized by, quote, fake Trump protesters?
We have not seen evidence of that at this stage.
Illinois Congressman Adam Kinzinger has become one of the national faces of the GOP resistance to Donald Trump. Kinzinger was one of the people Trump took aim at during the recent Conservative Political Action Conference. Take a look.
Instead of attacking me and, more importantly, the voters of our movement, top establishment Republicans in Washington should be spending their energy in opposing Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, and the Democrats. The Democrats don't have grandstanders like Mitt Romney, Little Ben Sass, Richard Burr, Adam Kinzinger. Get rid of them all.
And here to talk about that and much more is Congressman Adam Kinzinger, a Republican from Shanahan. Congressman, good to see you again. So you said you're fine being on Trump's enemies list here. I'm just curious how this impacts your day-to-day interactions with constituents or some of the mail that you receive.
Yeah, I mean, it can go both ways. So actually the calls and outreach to the office have been overwhelmingly supportive of, you know, taking the party and trying to take the country in a new direction. But of course, there are people that are upset about it. I expected no different. But, you know, my responsibility is to advocate as hard as I can for the benefits of my district, but then also as a Republican and as an American that swore an oath to advocate and push for policies that I think are helpful, and now just a tone that is helpful, because I have a feeling that we're in a position right now that if this kind of way of relating to each other continues, you know, democracy is going to be in real danger.
Can you expand? What kind of danger do you believe democracy is in, and how do you want to improve how folks are relating?
So, well, here's the thing. So a democracy exists, or a republic exists, on your ability to know that your vote is being tallied, to know that you can take your case and advocate for it in debates. And and conspiracies are detrimental to that. So when you have things like QAnon, where the president's saying that the election was stolen and it wasn't stolen, or that 74 million people were disenfranchised when in reality they were just outvoted, and then you have something like happened at the Capitol on January 6th, it's the kind of thing that breaks down political interaction. And politics was created to prevent violence. So I think, you know, what needs to happen as a Republican, I'm fighting to restore that optimistic view and optimistic future for this country, and to advocate everywhere for just treating each other like adults again and working together on policy, whether we agree or disagree.
And that lie about the stolen election persists. It was a big part of the CPAC conference. Donald Trump mentioned it again. And there's also a few of your colleagues in the Senate and the House saying that January 6th was somewhat of an undercover job, that there were some far-left activists that were masquerading as Trump supporters in those riots, when there's not even a shred of evidence that that's true. Is there a coordinated message among some of your colleagues here to obscure what happened on the 6th?
Well, I'm not sure if it's so much coordinated as, boy, if I just say that, I can avoid the pain of a base that's upset, right? And that's been the problem for too long, is we've avoided telling the truth. And instead we've peddled in fear and division and conspiracy, and sometimes just pushed off or said what needs to be said to get the applause, like you saw at CPAC. So that's where, you know, it's just a matter of telling people what the facts are. And you have to repeat it, unfortunately, often, because the lies are repeated just as often and sometimes easier to believe.
Certainly, there's a big ecosystem repeating some of those lies. You were censured by the Chicago GOP recently, joining a growing list of county GOPs censoring you for your very public stance on Donald Trump. But what's your reaction to all that activity?
Well, it's interesting. I don't represent Chicago. I represent areas outside of Chicago, and many of the counties that have censured me are not even anywhere near my district. So I think the Chicago GOP, which gets about 18% of the vote in an election, should probably be spending their time figuring out how to bring people in that, for instance, I won. In my district, I got 65% of the vote, and Donald Trump got 56. So I got people's votes that voted for Joe Biden. That's the kind of formula we need going forward as a party, a Republican Party in Illinois that doesn't have the luxury of of putting out a purity test and figuring out who does and doesn't belong. So if you want to censure me for following my conscience, I understand, but that says quite honestly more about you than it does about me.
Some of the votes I assume you didn't get were some of your family members who wrote that letter to you saying that you had joined the, quote, devil's army. Have you tried reasoning with any of them since that letter became public?
No, you know, she sent that letter so far and wide that, you know, a reporter was easily found. And I'm glad it came out because I think it shows the difficulty that's been and the division that's been going on in this country. So, look, I don't hold anything against them. I think they probably truly believe it. But I have no desire to reach out to them. And what that did was double down my desire and my effort to say, look, we have to have a better way. You know, we've got to do better at this. We can disagree with each other, but we got to treat each other like adults. And that's why I started the whole Country First movement with a 1st.com.
Right, the Country First movement, which you put out an advertisement on the web or a video. What's the ultimate focus of this initiative? Is it to put out commercials? Is it to raise money to support candidates? And have you had interested funders to this point?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of all the above. You know, when you look at how do we restore the values of the GOP? How do we bring people in that may have left or were considering leaving or maybe have never voted Republican? And it is getting out the information. It's talking about what the vision of the party can be. It's supporting candidates that put country first before a person. And the outreach has been incredible. I mean, we put out the first video and within 24 hours, we had 20,000 email addresses. It's not easy to get people's email addresses anymore. And the financial outpouring, though we haven't released numbers yet, has been incredible. So there's definitely an untapped market, not just for people that, you know, are upset at the Republican Party, but that feel unrepresented or are worried about where this party with a great history is going.
At the same time, there were some high-level Republicans that seemed to be breaking away from Donald Trump, like Mitch McConnell, Nikki Haley, Kevin McCarthy, only to have folded back a little bit. Are you worried about the direction that your party's going?
I am, and you know, part of that is, so after January 6th, I thought we had an opportunity to say, okay, you know, that happened. Donald Trump was president, but here's the vision going forward. And here's what we're about. And here's what, you know, how we give opportunity to the kid born in the toughest part of the city. And instead we saw with this intense desire to, you know, win the majority or whatever, what's the easiest fix? It's to go back to Donald Trump and get his donors. And that was disappointing to me. And that was actually part of the reason why I made made the decision and had the desire to launch a movement that's so big, is because somebody's got to say the alternative. Because if it's just Donald Trump speaking, you can't expect the grassroots to just have an organic awakening.
And, you know, you've been ubiquitous on national media outlets, networks, New York Times, The Atlantic. The unfortunate reality of our political media consumption right now is it seems to be pretty bifurcated, who's watching what. Do you need to go on places like Fox News to really get your message out to some of the people that you want to attract?
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, I've been on The View. Now, that's a great place to go to, you know, to bring back some of the suburban women that we've lost. And in places like Fox News, some of the problem is they don't necessarily always want to have me on, because I think it's a powerful message that's counter to what the president is saying. But I've also noticed, too, even if you're doing media that maybe the base isn't totally watching, they will get the message. And also, look, the Republican base changes. It changes. We've lost voters and we've gained voters. I think there's a huge number of people out there that just feel unrepresented. They're not Republicans right now. They're not Democrats. And they would be on board with an optimistic vision of the future of the country.
And a lot can change. I mean, we are only 1 month into a new administration. We don't know what it's going to look like in 6 months or a year. I want to get down to the COVID issue. You voted against the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill in the House. How come?
Well, so my hope is that comes back from the Senate, because I think they're going to have to change the minimum wage and that we can actually get to a bipartisan agreement. I wanted to vote for something, but the problem with this one is, first off, there was no outreach by any Democrat or by the White House to somebody like me, you know, to say, what do we need to get your support? I think there was a big check written to state and local governments without a real formula in place to figure out, you know, what is the impact? What do they actually need? There's a lot of money for schools. That's great, but most of it doesn't take effect till next year. And so when we look at spending things like $1.9 trillion and adding to the debt, I think we have to make sure we're spending it wisely, but it's also the time to be generous with it, and we need to be. I just thought, unfortunately, they went forward too fast with too much and didn't put a lot of thought into it.
All right, Congressman Kinzinger, we'll have to leave it there. Hope to see you again soon, and thank you for joining us.
You bet.
And up next, restaurant capacity is on the rise, so stay with us.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. What do you believe prevents a strong coalition of Black and Latino communities forming across the communities?
I want us to, as a nation, to find a way to come together.
Go down the block, get it from someone local, and keep the money in the community.
Black joy and the Black experience is magical.
Effective today, restaurants in Chicago can allow indoor dining at the lesser of 50% capacity or 50 customers. And the city's allowing restaurants, bars, and liquor stores to stay open later, as well as increasing capacity for indoor fitness classes.
Obviously, this is great news, and to be honest, I didn't expect that we would actually be here so soon. But I think that the wearing of the masks, certainly all these measures to vaccinate our residents across the city and really targeting our areas of need have really helped to make sure that we're all moving in the same direction, including our business communities.
Joining us now with more of the details is WTTW News reporter Heather Cerrone. So Heather, what were the metrics the city had to reach to achieve this expanded indoor dining?
Well, the one that was holding the city back was its test positivity rate. Now, the mayor and the Chicago Department of Public Health said that they wanted to let 14 days pass, which is the incubation period for a typical case of COVID-19, pass before they allowed restaurants and bars to increase from 40% to 50% capacity. Now, that we passed that mark this weekend, and today they turned that dimmer switch up a little bit, mostly because that test positivity rate is now at 2.9%, which is an all-time low. There's also all-time lows in hospitalizations, intensive care units, and as well as emergency room visits with symptoms of COVID-19. So as Dr. Allison Arwoody said, everything is moving in the right direction, so they felt like this was an appropriate step to take.
Cautious optimism right now. What about Cook County? Suburban restaurants also expanding capacity.
That's right. The city and the county partnered together so that they would sort of move in one step, so you wouldn't have a situation like, say, in Edison Park, where restaurants on one side of the border of Chicago would be under different rules, whereas restaurants in Park Ridge just literally stepped away would have different rules. So they tried to present a united front so that any possible surge couldn't really find its way in. And so far, it seems to have worked.
I know that area is very important to you, Heather. Very quickly, only a couple seconds, other restrictions loosened today.
So fitness classes will increase to 20 people per class, and bars can now serve until 1 a.m. and you can head to the liquor store until 11 p.m. Those sales had been stopped at 9 p.m. So you can run out for a nightcap in later than you had been able to.
I don't know why you're addressing that to me. All right, Heather, thank you so much.
Thanks, Paris.
And you can read Heather's full story on our website. It's all at WTTW.com/news. And now to Phil Ponce and a Lincoln Park Zoo legend. Phil.
Thanks, Paris. Dr. Lester Fisher has led a remarkable life, to put it mildly, from taking care of General Patton's bulldog during his service in World War II to a more than 4-decade association with the Lincoln Park Zoo. He started out as a part-time veterinarian hired by then zoo director Marlin Perkins of Wild Kingdom fame. When Perkins left in 1962, Fisher became the zoo's director. He went on to become a familiar face to Chicagoans through his Ark in the Park segments on WGN with Ray Rayner. And during his 30-year tenure, Fisher transformed not just Lincoln Park Zoo, but the notion of what a zoo could be. Last Wednesday, Fisher turned 100, and he joins us now to talk about his incredible life and career. Dr. Lester Fisher, welcome to Chicago Tonight. First of all, I'd like to ask...
Well, thank you very much for having me.
I'd like to ask you about taking care of General Patton's bulldog. How did that come to be?
it came to be because my boss, and when I went to England, my boss, Colonel Sperry, was you might say, a friend of the generals. They'd been in the cavalry in Kansas together. And so when Patton got a puppy when he was in England before he crossed the continent, and the dog was part of his life, and the colonel occasionally would call me up and say, Fisher, I'll be gone a few days. When I'm away, you take care of Willie. And my answer always was, yes, sir. And I enjoyed that responsibility, but it also preyed on me because I thought if anything happens to that dog during my watch, the general's going to get rid of me.
Well,
I think a lot of people worry about the German army, and I was worried about Willie.
Well, let's fast forward to your time at the Lincoln Park Zoo. You developed a particularly strong relation, an affection for Bushman the gorilla. Remind us who Bushman was.
Bushman was one of two big gorillas in America in those days. There was one at Ringling Brothers, Gargantua, and Bushman came to Chicago as a year-old youngster and grew up to be an incredible 550-pound, beautiful, muscled gorilla. And people in the city were fortunate to be able to come and watch and see him, and it was just an immense experience to be close to an animal of that size and scope.
My understanding is that you would even dream about Bushman. What made him so special to you?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would, because the dreams were the worrisome part. What'll happen if Bushman gets sick? How am I going to take care of him? What if ever I'm coming there to the old monkey house at night, 2 in the morning, and what if Bushman's standing out there somewhere waiting to see me? So those were the sort of dreams I had, and fortunately, I never had to worry too much about it, except one time the keeper goofed and didn't quite secure Bushman's cage properly. This was during the day, not at night. And word came to my office, Bushman's out. And that was a very dramatic moment to me. And we found out that he had been played with through the back areas by the keepers with some snakes. And so I said, go to the reptile house and get some garter snakes. And they did. And we showed them to Bushman under the doorway. And lo and behold, he walked back into his cage and we secured it and all was well. I was lucky.
Well, you were lucky then, but I understand that gorillas escaped from their enclosures 4 times. In fact, in 1985, when I was a reporter at Channel 2, I covered the escape of a gorilla named Otto. How was it that gorillas were able to get out of their enclosures?
Otto was a very interesting animal because my parents were friends of Otto Kerner, who was then governor of Illinois. And so that's why I named that particular youngster at that time Otto. And he got out not from the inside building area. He was in an outside yard and he scaled a wall somehow. And they have pictures of me running toward him outside there and him running toward me. And we had kind of a standoff. And again, by sheer good luck, we had the capture guns in those days where you could dart an animal with an anesthetic, and we shot Otto with that and put him back in his cage.
You were instrumental in re-envisioning what a zoo could be, because my understanding is that when you first got there, you came to think of the enclosures as jail cells for animals, but you transformed it into more of an open area, a little more naturalistic. Did you have, for want of a better term, an aha moment when you decided things have got to change?
Oh, my aha moment was the day I sat in my new office and thought a little about it. You have to remember that the zoos of 50 and 100 years ago were very sparse, and the reason was hygienic. It was easy to hose the cage out, so there was nothing in the cage except a shelf for the animal to sit on, and for people to come and look when they were able to. And it just struck me that this was not the best thing to do with the animals. And so we decided that one of our early goals would be to make life more meaningful for the animal. And we decided to have less kinds of animals, less species, and we would give fewer animals more space. So that was kind of a goal, and we worked toward that.
You became a regular on TV, as we mentioned on WGN TV. We just saw some still pictures of you appearing on Channel 9, and let's take a look at a clip.
David's brought Jeffrey, one of the
Jeffrey?
reptiles.
Is this Jeffrey?
Yes, this is Jeffrey.
Doctor, this zoo is full of animals with first names. I can't believe it. Jeffrey?
Well, what else would you call a handsome boy?
I don't know.
Like this.
Charlie?
He's really a sweet animal, and of course he's one of the handleable snakes. He's
Obviously.
not venomous. He's a joy to have in a zoo because he helps give people an opportunity, especially in the city area, to become acquainted with snakes.
Well, as you look back at those experiences, as you look back at your life, I'm sure a lot of people have asked you, having just turned 100, is there a secret to longevity?
Well, the only secret, and it's no real secret, is just good genes. Both of my parents lived to be in their 80s and 90s, and some good nutrition and a lot of good support from my parents, from friends, from caregivers, from doctors. I think if you have the right mix of that and a little luck thrown in, you too may be able to do what I did, reach 100.
Well, you've had more than a little luck and a remarkable career. Thank you for sharing some of your memories with us. Dr. Fisher, all the best to you, sir.
Thank you, Phil. Good to be with you.
And the Lincoln Park Zoo is reopening to visitors on Friday. You can visit our website for details. And Paris is back to wrap things up in a moment, but first, a look at the weather.
And that's our show for this Tuesday night, abbreviated to bring you Rise Up, Songs of the Women's Movement. And please join us tomorrow night live at 7. How will public health officials convince people to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine? And meet a Chicagoan who's plunged into Lake Michigan for more than 260 consecutive days. And now for us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe. Good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is proud of its partners.